What is up? Welcome to Etsy Jam. Have you ever wondered what it takes to earn an A on your listings in Marmalead? Are you curious why we're scoring your description's sentiment? Does it baffle you that one of your A listings can turn into a C listing a month later without you making any changes to it? Well, in this episode, Richie and I take a deep dive into how grading works in Marmalead. Learn how to score A's on all your listings and set yourself up for success. What is up? Welcome to Etsy Jam, the lively podcast where we have serious conversations. I am Gordon from Marmalead.
And I am Richie from Marmalead. And if you don't know what Marmalead is yet, but you do have an Etsy shop that you are serious about, then you need to get yourself some Marmalead, because Marmalead is the best Etsy SEO and market research tool for serious sellers. It's also what allows Gordon and I to do this Etsy Jam podcast, because we do Marmalead full time. So, that's all we do. We spend our time on Marmalead and make the Etsy world a little bit better for you.
Yeah. So if you're sick of the jams, just don't buy Marmalead. Whatever you do, don't buy Marmalead, and then we won't be able to do these anymore.
That's a really good point. Yep. If you want to stop the jams, just stop buying Marmalead.
There you go. Little insider tip.
There you go.
So what do we got on the docket today, Richie? What are we talking about?
That was a good question. So today we're going to talk about a Marmalead feature. We're going to talk about understanding shop grades. It's something that gets discussed a lot in our Facebook group. So if you aren't currently in the Facebook group, you're definitely missing some of the conversation. But new and old users and customers, they pop in there and they ask some different questions about shop grades and understanding them. So we figured we would take this opportunity to give a little audio as well as video. So if you're just listening to it, also make sure you run over to YouTube and check out anything that you want a visual for. But for the most part, I think the audio will suffice for understanding. All right. So
do you want to say it? I kind of wanted to say it.
I want you to say it.
What's the deal with shop grades? That's my best Seinfeld impression.
It was good. I think what we really needed is a cameo from Joe, because that would have been fantastic.
He does the best Seinfeld impressions, yeah.
Yeah. Your helicopter is super loud.
I know. He's just flying over now. I think he's gone. This is the downside of being outside for these things.
Well, what's the chance of that?
I know, right?
Yeah. It's okay. It makes things interesting, and it means we're doing it live. This is not pre-scripted.
Yeah,
we did not add a helicopter effect in there.
He might just be on an errand or something. I don't know.
We said one flyover. Just one. So the deal with shop grades, Gordon, that's a great question. Let's do a little overview of the shop grades. So listings, basically the shop grades they're pulling in your listings from Etsy, and they are we're grading them. I keep saying they. Marmalead is grading them based on Etsy SEO best practices. So again, this is Etsy SEO. It doesn't have anything to do with Google, Bing, or any of the other stuff. We're talking about Etsy, being found in Etsy search. But it's also not everything in their algorithm, right? People start talking about how Etsy search works. And yeah, it's understandably complicated, but there are things that are very impactful that you can control. And those are the things that we're grading on, which of course leads to the questions, well, what factors can't I control? Well, You can't control something called the listing quality score or the shop quality score.
Now, what in the world are those?
That's a good question. Now, Etsy doesn't actually release a lot of information on either one of those, but there is some information about them. So overall, listing quality score has to do with, are people happy when they buy this product? That has to do with your shop quality score too. So are you getting good reviews? When your listing is showing up in search, are people engaging with it? Meaning, are they clicking it? And of course, are they buying it? So things like a conversion rate factor into this. And I'm not sure where the line between these is different. The listing quality score versus the shop quality score. They mention them, but since they don't really talk in depth about the different factors with them, know they're there and know that it really has to do with the buyer experience with your listings and your shop.
Yeah. That's a good point. It wouldn't surprise me if these two factors were weighted differently for individual shops too. Like your shop quality score could matter more for one shop than it does for another shop. Um, and the other thing I was going to mention too, while you can't directly control these things, like you can't say, I want my shop quality score to be 100%, you can indirectly impact these things by soliciting for reviews, getting people to leave you some good feedback, taking care of any issues that they have with your products, and making sure you're picking keywords that represent your listings so that when people are doing a search and they're expecting to see a certain thing, you're in line with that and they're engaging with you. So you can't directly impact these things, but if you're doing the right things and you're doing your best, you can kind of influence them.
Yes. So for listing quality, for example, let's say you have a listing on there, but the picture isn't the best. It's not the greatest. It's not the most captivating picture. So you show up in search, but people don't click it. Well, Etsy's going to see like, okay, we presented your item in search a few times and buyers are not clicking it. They're clicking the other ones. What are they going to do? They're going to drop you from those pages. You're going to start falling back in the rankings because they're going to try cycling other ones in there that are going to perform better. Overall, they want to put forth on the first pages the things that they think are going to sell the best. And the things that are going to sell the best are the ones that are actually getting attention. So again, like Gordon said, these are things you can sort of control. Just make sure that if you're going to show up and search, you put your best foot forward with things like your photos. All right, so that's kind of a overview of the shop grades. Now we're going to go through some questions that come up and just kind of other topics that come up around them, such as, well, how bad is a B or C grade? Good question.
It's the end of the world.
It's a question where
your parents are going to ground you.
You're going to have to get your report card signed and brought back.
You might. Yeah, we should do that. You're going to need to electronically sign this.
Make sure it's been reviewed.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how bad is a B or a C grade then? I mean, is it the end of the world?
Well, it really depends. It can be. It really depends where you're failing. Or falling short. So a B and a C is not failing. So I guess fail it, like where you're failing is the wrong word. Like where you're falling short, where the deficiencies are. An A is going to represent, optimum. Everything is great. There's no room for improvement, right? So a B or C means that there is room for improvement. So here's where a visual might help a little bit. So we have a visual of an example of a C+ listing. Okay, mm-hmm. So it starts out with tags used. There are 13 of 13 tags used. Well, that is good. Etsy gives you 13 tags, so use them. Why not?
Yeah.
But then here's where it's falling short. Their tags in their title, which is a strong factor for search, which we can go into at a whole nother time. But regardless, tags and title, there's only 2 out of 13 in there. Now, to get an A, we don't even recommend that. We don't even require that you get all 13.
Yeah,
it tops out.
It would be really tough to do that.
Yeah, so I think full credit is 7. So you really have like 2 out of 7 for full credit, but 2 out of 13 because that's how many you really could.
Yeah.
Regardless, is that awful? Well, it means there's room for improvement. But if you are really happy with how this listing is performing, where it's showing up for search. These are the 2 tags, 2 keywords. Maybe it's 1 keyword over 2 tags. Not sure. Regardless, if you're really happy with how this is performing, well, then that's great. You're winning. Your C+ listing is winning. That's it. You're good. And that's why it's important to see where it is. And it's like, hey, if I'm short here, that's okay. But at least if you're going to break the rules, bend the rules, go against best practices, just know what areas you're changing. Right. Just be informed.
Exactly. Which is hopefully what you'll come away from this podcast with, is a good understanding of what all these individual grades mean.
Yes. The last one on here is renewed. So this was renewed 1 day ago, so it's pretty recent. And again, if you're showing up on the first couple pages of the keyword that you are targeting, then you're doing great. You know, you've been renewed recently enough.
Yeah.
That you're getting the performance you want, and that's really all that matters is, you know, are you getting the performance you want? Where these really start to matter is if you have a C plus and you're not getting the performance you want, well, this is going to be a great way to see visually, oh, these are some areas I can improve on.
Yeah. This is probably also a good time to bring up the question that some people might have when, you know, they go through all their listings, they make all the changes that they need to make to get all of their listings A pluses, and then they come in like a week later and they look and all their grades are down, or some of them are down. Oftentimes that's due to renewals. If you're not going back in to renew your listings, as time goes on, you are less likely to get a bump in rank from recency, which is one of the factors that Etsy uses. And so that's reflected in your Marmalead grades too. So you could, in effect, make no changes to a listing, and yet you'll see your grades start to slip inside of Marmalead.
Yes. And it's important. That's why. Like a lot of people kind of, you know, they groan about having to renew and this and that, but a lot of the successful sellers we talk to have a renewal strategy in place. They don't go through and renew, you know, 600 listings a day. Right. They have a little strategy going on, and it works. And think about why that works. You know, renewal counts as whether or not you click to manually renew it, or if it sells and you renew the listing. Mm-hmm. But as it ages without a renewal, what it really means is it hasn't sold in a long time.
Yeah, it hasn't gotten any attention either. It's like you kind of forgot about it.
So either people aren't finding it in search, and, you know, let's see, maybe they're not finding it in search at all, or maybe they're seeing it in search, but they're not engaging with it, or maybe they are engaging with it, but they're not buying it. Regardless, Etsy starts to see this pattern of, well, this listing is not selling. So what do you do with things that aren't selling? You put them on the shelf in the back. Yeah. So renewing is a way to say, hey, look at me, I'm still here. You know, put me back up to the front, coach.
Yep.
So it is important. It is definitely important. So don't shy away from it. All right. Another good time to talk about, you know, well, I guess there's another slide here that addresses that. So let's talk about a real quick difference between SEO, which is what we were just talking about grading wise, versus keywords. So there's a difference between having good SEO and having good keywords. Like, they fit together. Good keywords are definitely part of an SEO strategy, but you can't just say like, hey, I have an A, you know, that is all encompassing, everything is fantastic. You might have an A for applying really bad keywords to your listings, right? So it's really two different tactics to kind of come into one SEO strategy.
Yep.
So the SEO grading is based on how those keywords are applied to your listing. But you have to use the other tools in Marmalead independently, like keyword research, to find out what are the best keywords for you in your listings.
Yeah.
And then it's a matter of applying them. I mean, SEO stands for search engine optimization, like optimizing your listing to be found in search for the keywords that you've chosen over here.
Yeah. And so you might be thinking, well, you know, you're scoring keywords using the Marmameters, and you're scoring my listings using these grades. Why can't you just work the Marmameter scores into the keywords and then wrap it all into one and just give me like one overall score? Why is there this difference between keywords and my overall listing grade? And there's two big reasons for that. One is that different shops and different listings are going to be able to rank for different levels of competition. So something might be super high competition, but if I've got a lot of shop cred, I might have a really good shot at being able to rank well for that on the first few pages. Yet if I'm a shop who's just starting out and I don't have a lot of built up history and track record and sales and stuff like that, I'm going to have a whole lot harder of a time ranking for those things. So we can't necessarily tell you whether or not you're going to have success ranking for a keyword. We can show you the competition level, and over time, as you apply these keywords to your shop, you'll get a good sense of, okay, here's a keyword with very high competition, I couldn't rank for that. Here's one with moderate competition, I was able to rank for that. So I kind of know which level of competition I can target and be successful with. And then the other big reason for why we can't kind of wrap all those things in together is it's really hard for us to know whether or not a keyword is an accurate description of your listing or not. So it could be the best keyword in the world. It could have extremely high engagement, and it could be something that has a competition level that you can rank for. But if it's something that when somebody goes to Etsy and does a search and types in that keyword and your listing shows up and they say, this isn't what I was looking for at all, well, nobody's going to be clicking your listing, and you're not going to get the benefits of that keyword at all. And that's, again, something that you're going to know that better than we could programmatically try and figure out whether or not this keyword is a good description for your listing.
Agreed. Those are two very good reasons. All right, next. Why does my C listing outperform my A listing? Well, a lot of what you just said kind of factors in that too. There's a lot of stuff that we can't possibly know because, we're not experts in what your actual listing is and whether or not this word really applies for it and, the market and how shoppers would behave. A couple other scenarios, such as it really depends on what's driving your lower grade. So that C+ listing we talked about, your lower grade is because you only have 2 of the 13 tags in your title. But what if you're really killing it with those 2 keywords or, 2 tags, which could be really 1 keyword. But still, regardless, you might just be really killing it with that and that one thing that you're ranking really well for. And that's awesome. If you're happy, that's great. And then second, another scenario, maybe your A listing is targeting a keyword where you're not a great fit. So again, exactly what you're just talking about, Gordon. Like you might be targeting a keyword where you're not a great fit, so people might even click it. But if it's not a good fit, they might just be clicking out of curiosity, just kind of like a little window shop, like, oh, that's interesting, but I would never buy it, and just keep going. So yeah, so it really depends. Again, these grades are about how well you're applying keywords to your listing, but it's assuming that the keywords you're applying to them are the best keywords for that listing.
Yeah.
Which I think is like the really big takeaway. Like, you first have to make sure that you are choosing good keywords. Good keywords, both that, has good engagement, competition you can rank for, and that they're appropriate for these listings.
Yeah.
That's super important.
Yeah.
Oh, and the other reason it might outperform is simply this photo that you're putting there on that listing is that much better than this other one. All else being equal, the photo can make a huge difference.
Absolutely.
That's pretty much what search is anyways, like a photo contest. Once you are on the first pages of search, it's pretty much a photo contest. Like the shopper is going to click the listings that are most interesting to them.
Yep.
Grab the most attention. So and that's a
Etsy does show photos title, part of your title, and price there, but when people are shopping, they're more likely to go just based off of the photos. And then if they drill into it and like your other photos, they're probably going to take a look at price at that point and title it. Maybe titled. Sometimes they don't even look at the title. But yeah, photos are huge.
Absolutely. We have a whole nother gem on photos. So go find that. Let's see. Next. Why does it say my tags aren't in my title? This one comes up. People say, hey, my tags are in my title, but they're not being counted. Is there a bug? What's going on? Usually this is due to some punctuation that's going on in the title that's not in the tags. So if your title is silver hyphen starfish hyphen necklace, and your tags are silver, comma, starfish, and necklace, they will count, right? Because they're separate tags and they look like separate words in the title and everything's good. But if your tags are silver starfish and necklace, well, then necklace will count because your title is breaking up that keyword with punctuation.
Yeah.
It does not look like, one piece. It looks like, looks completely different. There's a hyphen between it. Not sure how else to describe that, but punctuation.
Yeah.
It matters. And some people say like, Etsy search and their algorithm like ignores this or ignores that. And like, don't give it too much credit. Like anything it ignores has to be like explicitly programmed in to ignore. It doesn't just like automatically ignore like, we'll just check this box and like it works like this, right? There's There's work involved in that. And you can tell that, yeah, some things it works the same. And then other things, for whatever reason, it doesn't. So, and if you actually like take some of this, you put some punctuation or you make a plural, sometimes a plural, like necklaces versus necklace, sometimes it brings back the same listings.
Yeah.
Sometimes it does not. So the only way to tell if it matters is to try. But there's also no guarantee that if it doesn't matter today, it won't matter, see, it doesn't matter today, that it won't matter tomorrow. Yeah. Like, I mean that.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. There's a lot of back and forth about plurals on Etsy and whether or not they matter, and whether Etsy says they matter, says they don't matter. In my opinion, I think you're just safest if you make sure that they match. However you write it in your title, make sure you write it that same way in your tags. Another thing that we've seen too, where people will say that a tag in their title isn't matching what they're using in their actual tag. Sometimes they'll use an accent on a certain letter. So, like, I think the example that we ended up looking at was decor. And you can include an accent in your title. They didn't have it in the tag. I don't even think Etsy allows you to do accents in tags, so you probably couldn't if you wanted to. But my personal take on that is, if it were my listing, I would be wanting to write my tags in my title exactly how shoppers are going to be searching for it. And if you really think that shoppers are going to be making sure that they're careful enough to, get the E with the accent over it when they're typing in their search term, then go for it. But I would be willing to bet that most shoppers who are including the word decor in their search term aren't taking the time to do that. And so I wouldn't want to be including it that way in my tags or my title.
Agreed. Yeah, put it in how your shopper is gonna shop. It's the safest way to do it. Especially since everyone's like, hey, like I don't want to have to redo all these listings and stuff. And it's like, okay, well then just do it the way your shoppers are going to search right now, and you won't have to go redo it when you find out that plurals are different than singular, or punctuation does matter, stuff like that. Remember, everything you see out there is an opinion. Just see if it makes a difference. If you test it, if someone says like, hey, this doesn't matter, and then you go and test it, and it's like, hey, it looks like it does matter. What are you going to believe? I'll believe my own eyes.
Yeah.
Anyways, I digress. All right, next question. This is in the grading section, but it's not actually included in the grade. I should mention that too. But the question is, why doesn't this tag have a Marma score? Now you get to this when you click one of those listings that has a grade on it, and you scroll down, there's a tag section where we're going to look at your tags and give a title strength as well as a Marmometer score. And one of the questions is, why doesn't this tag have a Marmometer score? The other ones do. Well, the reason isn't because it's an awful keyword or anything like that. It might be, but it might not be. It's just that we don't have fresh data on it right then, because no one in the Marmalead ecosystem has searched it recent enough that we're comfortable with the scores we have. Now, the easy way to remedy that, if you so choose, is to do a search on the keyword that is in that tag, right? So if you do a search for that, it will refresh the data, and then we will have fresh data to show you there in the Marmometers. So nothing too crazy going on, just needs refreshed.
So in that same title,
all right,
you mentioned there's a title strength column in there too.
There is a title strength.
What's the deal with title strength?
So this measures how close to the front of your title the specific tag or keyword is, right?
Why does that matter?
If your title, well, it matters because one of the strong factors of Etsy search and showing up, higher in your search or their search is how close the search keyword is to the front of the listing's title, right? Yeah. And the other one is whether or not you have it in your tag and your title, among other things. But nonetheless, that's why it's very important, because they said they give great weight to what's in the front.
Yeah, and I think the idea behind that is, Etsy knows you can't put every word at the front of your title. I don't even know how that would look if you could. But this is a good way of kind of forcing sellers, when they're creating their listings, to choose and order their keywords and say, this is the most important keyword to me. It should go at the very front of my title. Like, the ones that aren't as important can go towards the back. of my title. But it's a good way of comparing two listings that otherwise, from Etsy's point of view, have the same keyword in the title and in their tags. They can say, okay, well, which listing has it closer to the front of the title if I really want to be particular and show something that's more relevant than something else. Because at the end of the day, that's all their algorithm's really trying to do is look across a bunch of listings and decide what order they should go in and which one should come before this other one and stuff like that. And so that's one of the factors that they use, like Richie's saying, is how close it is to the front of your title.
Why can't they all just be equal relevancy though? Like maybe there just are no bad listings. They're all number one.
They could do that. And, they could lean on a lot of other factors that they use too, to rank these things when they do a search and come back with search results. But I think in its infancy, Etsy put a lot of weight on this, and I think it kind of sticks around as a relic in that their algorithm still looks at this to determine whether or not this listing is more or less relevant than another one.
It's tough because the other thing it still pops around that people believe is like, just putting a lot of density of keywords, like, oh, I'll just paste this a bunch of times in my description or I'll just repeat the same, copy paste this keyword in my title as many times as it fits. And then if it shows up 10 times, that's easy to be like, wow, it says 10 times in here. It's great. Well, search engines like Google used to work like that way long ago, but haven't for a long time. So, I mean, like, what else are you going to do aside from, you can only put one in the very front. Like, you have to choose. So it might not be the best way, but it's kind of the best way that's available.
Yeah.
Aside from just putting all the listings in one row. So you're like, hey, everyone's in the first row, but we're just going to like horizontal scroll for like 10,000 listings to the right.
Yeah.
So that everyone can kind of feel like they're still first.
Horizontal scrolling.
Vertically.
Is the best, by the way.
I know you love horizontal scrolling.
Everything.
Well, I mean, it's easier to make this motion than like this motion. You know what I mean?
Yeah. In fact, they should,
like,
the little wheel on the mouse, like they should flip it so it goes the other way. And then just everything scrolls horizontally. Then we can call it natural scrolling.
All right. Hey, that's what we'll do after the jam. Is we will we'll get to work on the Marmalead mouse.
Yeah, it'll work great with Marmalead.com once we update all of our pages to scroll horizontally instead of vertically.
Oh yeah. Well, once Etsy upgrades their algorithm to put everything horizontal, everything's in one row, but to the right, it'll work. It'll coincide perfectly with that update as well.
Yeah, the Etsy / Marmalead mouse.
I like it. All right. Well, we have that to look forward to. But also we should answer what 0% means. So there's title strength of, 100%, 30%. What is 0%? Well, it means it's not in your title at all.
100 would be, that's the strongest, right? You're at the very front of your title. You're doing the best. So 0, you're at the very back or not in it at all.
Correct.
Yeah.
So 100 right in the front, 50 starts halfway, and 0 at the end or not at all.
Yeah.
So that's what that means. All right. Well, why should I care about descriptions? Which are not part of your SEO. They're not in your grade.
Right.
As far as Etsy's concerned,
Etsy doesn't really look at them either for rank.
Nope. They are used for selling your item once people are already in it. But yeah, they don't look at it and look for like keyword density or anything like that. Etsy has no concepts of things like backlinks. No, they care about those other things. But the description is important, regardless of whether or not you're someone that, sometimes sellers subscribe to the idea that like no one reads descriptions. Well, I don't think browsers really read descriptions very much, right? Windows shoppers don't do a lot of description reading. And I mean, based on some of the people that buy stuff and then send you a message later and say, hey, what's the deal with this thing you sent me? It's like, it's a miniature chair for like a dollhouse. I thought I was getting like an Adirondack chair for my patio. What's the deal with this? And it's like, well, in the description, it clearly says like this is a dollhouse chair, like, 1/20th scale is like 5 inches. That's what the deal with it is. You would definitely feel like people don't read descriptions. That person might have read the description and just read what they wanted to see. Because that happens sometimes. You ever go to read something and like you kind of read what you expected it to say, not what it actually said, and you go back and you're like, huh,
Did they change this? They must have changed it since I read it.
yeah, yeah. But descriptions are important, especially when you're buying things online, right? You go to the store and typically like pick up the box too often, like read everything there's on the box, because you're kind of like you're picking things up, you can touch it, feel it, you're like, oh, yep, something's in the box, like this is good. When you're buying stuff online, though, the only thing you have is the pictures and the words. So we won't get into like what every one of these things represents because there are little question mark tooltips. If you hover over them, you can read the bigger explanation about what it is. But in this example that we have on the screen, words. So it's yellow. It's got about 134 words. I think if I hover over the tooltip, it'd say something about like 250 words is kind of like a nice length. Again, these are kind of like benchmarks. These are good. Studies show these are good length and stuff like that. But depending on what you sell, right? If it's a lower cost, quick buy, like there's not a lot to say about this because it's kind of really, really obvious. Well, then, yeah, you can do it shorter. But if what you're selling is expensive, like people probably want to really get the whole dog and pony show before they pull the trigger on buying this. They really want all those questions answered. They really want to like have you, earn the sale by telling them all about it and like really make them feel good about it. Which kind of goes into sentences, right? So there's a little sentence, grade level. You actually want, for the most part, maybe if you're selling some sort of like grammar guide, or your audience is like a fancy writer of some sort, like maybe you want to impress them with your vocabulary. But for the most part, yeah. Yeah, if you're selling leather-bound books and stuff like that, and your living space smells of rich mahogany, then perhaps you could up that to like a 12th grade reading level. But for the most part, I think it only goes up to a 12th grade level, but it doesn't go up to like P8. Maybe we should change to like include like.
Yeah, we should.
You never went to 12th grade?
I've never seen a grade on anyone's listing that goes up to 12th grade for their description.
I'm pretty sure you never saw 12th grade, which means like you didn't make it to 12th grade.
No, I just blacked out for that grade.
I never saw it.
I just don't recall it.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think we should go higher than that, though. I mean, why stop at 12?
Why not go up to like your PhD?
Yeah, maybe writing doesn't ever get any more complicated than what you read in 12th grade.
Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know.
We'll have to hear from
let's say I'm looking at my listing, Richie, and I'm getting like a 6th grade score, and I'm like, oh, that's okay, right? I mean, it's how I write and everything, but they're recommending I shoot for 4th grade because that converts better historically for e-commerce. So, okay, cool. Let's try to do that. How do I get my 6th grade writing to be more 4th grade?
Take a look at any sort of words that might be not obvious to a lot of people. Like if you have any more challenging words, those are kind of what's driving it up, right? More complicated words, longer sentences, things like that. Try to be like more succinct, direct, and use your more basic words. Like the more letters or syllables your word has, the more difficult it's going to be and the less obvious it's going to be to most people, Yeah. So that'd probably be my advice to that. What about you? You have some special advice?
No, that's pretty spot on, man. The only other thing I would mention too is, Richie kind of called it out before. we have tooltips throughout Marmalade, and if you forget some of what we're saying here in this episode, or as you're using the tool you realize you have another question about something else, try the tooltips. You just mouse over these little question mark things inside the app, and it'll actually pretty much give you a summary of what we just told you about these grades and how they get calculated and how you can impact those, how you can change it so that you get a higher or lower grade in different areas. So the tooltips are your friends. Not as good of friends as Richie and I, but they can be there on the page.
Yeah, absolutely. Acquaintances.
Yeah.
And more like friends. Yeah. just not best friends.
No, not besties.
Yeah. The last one being sentiment. So it could be positive, neutral, or negative. So you might wonder what the heck is that? And why are we using a word like sentiment, which is probably not a 4th grade level? I don't have an answer to that one. But it's not that word being scored right now, so we're gonna let it slide. Sentiment, though, you generally want your description to be positive, right? You want to talk about this stuff in a negative light. So I don't know, what would things cause it to be more skew more towards negative or neutral? Words like cancel or fail or
broken,
spontaneously catches on fire, broken, cracked, damaged, right? Things like that. Those are kind of extreme examples that you're probably not going to be using for whatever you're selling on there. You'd be like, well, why would I use any of that for handmade soap? I don't know. Maybe cracked you would use for handmade soap, but I don't know. Regardless, there are certain words that generally, in English anyway, are considered to have a more negative or neutral sentiment, and there are certain words that have a positive sentiment. So
beautiful, gorgeous,
beautiful. There you go.
Adorbs.
What else? Adorbs. Courageous.
There's some in the tooltip, I think.
There are examples in the tooltip.
Yeah.
This image on my screen though is just like a screenshot, so the tooltip won't come up.
Yeah. You could hover and just wait.
I've been doing that.
Nothing?
Have you ever had a screenshot on your screen you try to click it and you're like, this is not working?
Yes. Yeah, man. In fact, in high school, we had a computer lab class, and one of our favorite things to do is to take a screenshot of the desktop and then set that as their wallpaper and hide all the icons, and people would go nuts trying to click the icons to open things when it was just a picture. This is geek humor.
So bonus fun, any listeners that are using a shared computer, do just that. Take a screenshot of the desktop, hide all the icons, and set that as the wallpaper, and then watch for minutes of fun.
Yeah, it's great fun.
Do that while you take a break on your, from editing your listings. That'd be good.
As far as sentiment, though, I can see somebody who's selling something vintage, where you want to accurately describe your listing, and maybe it has some flaws, blemishes and cracks and dents and dings and nicks and scratches and that kind of stuff, right? I don't know if all those words are going to trip it to think it's negative, but it's probably a good thing to keep in mind to kind of just make sure you're balancing that out with the other ways that you're describing this listing, and you're not using all these words that kind of in the back of someone's mind are going to start suggesting negative things to them, whether or not they're even thinking they are.
That's a good point. You don't want to talk someone out of a sale here. Let's say you're selling anything that is pre-owned, you put something on Craigslist or something like that, or a garage sale. You don't want to lead with everything that's wrong with this and I can't wait to be rid of this thing. It's, I think it's haunted. And it's whoa, what?
Yeah.
No thanks now, but thanks for the description. Yeah. So balance it out. It's haunted, but it's the most comfortable chair I've ever sat in.
Whoa. Did you say haunted?
But I don't think so. No one said that.
It's really comfortable.
No one said anything like that. Yeah, super comfortable. Hauntingly comfortable.
Lived in. Hmm?
I like that.
Yeah. Anyway.
Be on the lookout for this guy. Anyways, well, that was the last of them. Unless you have any
Yeah.
other closing notes for shop grades.
No, I think that's it. And I mean, we went through the description things, and just to recap on those same things, um, it's important, right? That like we were saying, to focus on your description. It doesn't get used in your scoring or your ranking or anything like that. So any changes you make, you'll see your progress bars in the description section of Marmalead change to reflect the changes that you've made to your listings. But you won't actually see your letter grade change on your listing because of changes you've made to your description, right? We don't include that in your SEO score, just the same way as Etsy isn't really including that in the way that you're ranking on their search engine either. So it wouldn't have made sense for us to ding you maybe for something in your description not lining up with best practices, right? Like, as we said, those are kind of different for everybody too. But it's also really important, like Richie was saying, to make sure that you are writing good descriptions and accurate descriptions and using mostly positive words to describe your listings and things like that. And so that's why we included it in Marmalead, to kind of help you with that. Those are some things that we can analyze and help you with some meaningful numbers, but they're not a direct impact on your SEO score or your rank inside of Etsy.
Correct. But description is your sales pitch, so make it strong.
Yeah. Just like your photos.
That too. Yes. Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah. That's all we got for those. But I mean, these are pretty common questions that people ask us about the grading stuff in Marmalead. So hopefully, if you're one of those people and maybe you've looked at the stuff before and had some questions about it, didn't think to ask us, hopefully we answered those. Hopefully it makes a little bit more sense to you now.
Hope so.
Yeah.
Do you have any closing remarks?
No, I was going to do a Seinfeld joke, but I can't think of any.
Until next time, I guess. Next time you can start with the Seinfeld joke you were going to end with here. Just one of those, like, to be continued.
That sounds good. Yeah, I'll look up a good Seinfeld joke and then do another bad Seinfeld impression at the beginning of the next jam.
I like that.
I think it'll be good. I mean, not the impression, but including it will be good.
No, definitely not that. Yeah, yeah. That will be favorable.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Other than that, we will see you guys next time on Etsy Jam.